Hello. See, we're getting Montana all set up over there. Please back up out of the camera view. Thank you.
Okay, Mom. Okay, Mom.
Oh, man. I know y'all are, dealing with all this quarantine nonsense, and, we are too, but, yours is much higher risk than ours is.
Yeah.
So this link has gone to my nursing moms group. That's who y'all are going to be talking with today. So hopefully they will be jumping on here momentarily. I'm going to mute them so that they're not going to be talking over us or anything like that. And I'm going to be joined soon by my friend Mary Hunter, who is an IBCLC as well.
Yep.
So
She's the one who gave us the link.
She's a very good friend of us. We
are
IBCLCs.
Hey, look, it's Mary Hunter. Dun, da, da, da.
Let's see.
Can we see her there?
I'm trying to figure out how to get the grid up here.
There's a button that you can hit gallery view and it will pop up.
Go to more. No.
Hello.
Hey, Mary Hunter. Hey, Montana. There's Montana. I see her.
Hey.
Hey. So I've shared this video with my nursing moms group. I am going to mute everybody except for you, myself, and Mary Hunter. So that way we're not going to have a whole bunch of other voices popping in over us. And they will get to see you and, Mary Hunter and I, and we'll be able to hopefully get all of the questions asked. I have a little chat thing going on the side too. So if somebody, types in a question, I can interject that if we need to.
Okay, great. You can hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Mary Hunter, can you hear Montana?
I can, and I've got 3 little ones in the background, so I might mute myself except for when I want to say something.
Okay.
That's exactly why I have headphones in, because apparently my husband has a weekly work chat at this time. And
is that Donna? Who else is with us? I thought that was your hair.
So Jen's here, Montana's here, I'm here, and you just said Donna's here too.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know who else is going to eventually pop in here, but
hello.
We'll see soon. All right. So if you don't know who this lovely woman here is, this is Montana. Montana is the manager at WakeMed Mother's Milk Bank in Cary. I got to know her through donating through the milk bank shortly after my son was born. And she and I have our first phone conversation. We sat there and laughed at each other because I answered one of the screening questions wrong, and that really broke the ice. So I'm going to let Montana introduce herself a little bit and see if, give a little bit about her and why she's doing what she's doing.
Yeah, so like Karen said, I'm the manager of the milk bank here at WakeMed Cary, and I've been in this role for over 5 years now, which is kind of crazy to say because it still feels new to me. We moved to Cary in 2015. I actually volunteered in the milk bank for 1.5 years before I started this role. And I did my undergrad at NC State, and then I went to UNC through their Mary Rose Tolley training initiative to become a lactation consultant. And then I most recently went back for my master's in nutrition and food science through NC State, which if you do it in the lab that I did it in, essentially is like getting a master's degree in breast milk, which, as we all know, breast milk is amazing stuff. So to be able to get a master's degree in it was pretty cool. And then I returned to my role here in the milk bank. So we again moved here 2015 to our new space in Cary. It's much larger than the space that we had in Raleigh. We are the only nonprofit milk bank in North Carolina. There are 27 in the U.S. We're all part of the Human Milk Banking Association of North America, which is the organization. You're familiar with how the hospital works. What JCO is to the hospital, Himbana is to us. So they provide all of our guidelines for operation. They provide all of our donor screening information, how we process human milk. They provide all of that guidance to us. And then they also accredit us every single year. So they come visit and inspect us every year and make sure that we're doing everything we're supposed to do to keep the babies that we serve safe. So we serve 44 NICUs in 8 different states, and we dispense about 250,000 ounces of milk a year. So that's quite a bit of milk. And at any point, we have about 200 active donors. So it takes about 200 active donors to dispense that much milk. And of course, they cycle throughout the year. So it's not the same group of 200 donors. You know, you have some that retire and some that come on throughout the year. So we're trying to expand and serve more babies, but in light of COVID-19, we've actually tried to have measures to conserve the milk that we do have so we can continue to serve the most vulnerable babies first. That's our mission. That's Himbana's mission, to serve the babies that are in the NICU where there's the most evidence for use of donor milk. So that's kind of the space that we're in. It's a tricky space. I'm sure you've heard, you know, blood banking is really struggling right now because there aren't people out there in the community donating. We're kind of in the same boat where we need folks to go out and get their blood results done. So a lot of people are kind of scared to go to LabCorp right now, you know, maybe rightfully so. So we've seen an increased interest in donation, but it's also, we know that it's going to be a tough road ahead getting folks to get their blood screening done. Would it be helpful if I kind of talked about what the donor screening process entails? Is that interesting to people?
Yes, and that's something I want to have you talk about, but I also wanted, you know, right off the bat, because, you know, you mentioned it, the COVID-19 thing is a big deal in our country right now. Do you have any information about COVID-19 and breast milk? From what we've heard, you know, that's not something that's penetrating into breast milk. Is that correct information? Is that good science?
Here's the thing about a novel virus is that this virus was just isolated weeks ago. So in order to do good quality research on a virus that just got isolated is not going to happen, you know, quickly.
Right.
So I can say that they did do a study in China with COVID positive moms and that breastfed, and there was no evidence of transmission through breast milk for but it was a small study. It was 9 moms. We can say that viruses like that typically aren't, you know, there are other coronaviruses, so they're not a contraindication to breastfeed. And as of right now, the CDC is still saying that even if you had a COVID-19 positive mom, it is not a contraindication to breastfeed. And that's because we know that breast milk has amazing antiviral properties to it to protect babies, even if a mom is positive for certain viruses. You know, if you had, you know, any number of viruses that are out there. So like for me, I always use this example. I had mono when I was a child. So would that be a contraindication for me to breastfeed? Absolutely not. Are those viral particles still in my body? Absolutely. So it's something that I think we're kind of, you know, there's new evidence coming out each day and new guidance from the FDA and the CDC. The other good piece of information that Himbana gave us was that the FDA has said that it's not shown to be transmissible through food or food packaging. So I know we all like to think of breast milk as kind of this miraculous substance, but at the end of the day, it is still a food. We are putting it in food packaging. Is there something else going on now? The screen just changed. Make sure we're good.
Yeah, we had a new participant jump in.
Cool. Cool. So yeah, it's good to know that the CDC is still saying that breastfeeding is what's recommended even in a COVID-19 positive mom. And the FDA is saying that there's no evidence that it's transmissible through food and food packaging. So that's a good thing.
Fabulous. That's the kind of information that we really want to get out to moms, especially, you know, brand new moms with this whole this whole pandemic going on. So let's talk about
the big butt is there's still things that we're going to ask donors to do and still things that we should be telling moms to do. Washing your hands very, very frequently before you touch your baby, washing your hands before you pump. I mean, it's amazing to me. We ask questions about when we screen moms, which I can talk about the screening process.
Yep.
When we screen moms, we talk about the requirements for how they handle their milk if we're going to give it to a NICU baby. This is really how they should be handling their milk all the time. And it's amazing how many moms are not washing their hands before they pump, not washing their hands before they touch their pump cards or their bottles or their food. You would wash your hands before you prepare food for anybody. I mean, I would hope.
Yes.
So if you think about, and a lot of people just don't think about pumping and breastfeeding as feeding, preparing a food essentially. So
right.
Making sure that people are practicing all those good hand hygiene techniques when they're about to pump. Or touch their pump or interact with their breast milk in any way. So I'm always surprised by how many people are like, I'm not sure if I wash my hands every time, which I know it's a pain, but it's definitely something you should still be doing. And that was part of the CDC recommendation too. It's not, we don't want you to not breastfeed, but we also want you to do all of these things that you should be doing.
Yes. So talk to us about what the milk bank does. I know that milk banking is, it's something that I definitely didn't hear about until I went inquiring about it and trying to figure out, what the heck can I do with all of this breast milk that I'm going to have? So
Sure.
what does the milk bank do?
Sure. So I always, when I run into someone in an elevator and they ask me what I do, I have a little elevator speech. And I liken milk banking to blood banking. It's very, very similar, except for our donors do not donate on site. So there are some milk banks in other countries that do it that way. We don't do that way here. So what happens is we screen donors in the milk bank. There's kind of two components. There's the administrative component and then there's the lab component. So we do all of the donor screening here. The donor screening process is a 3-part process. There's going to be an initial screening that we do with them. It's actually partially completed online now. We've tried to make it a little bit easier for moms. They can go online. Yeah, they can go online on our website, wakemed.org/milkbank. There's a little red tag at the top that says donate your milk now. And they can click that button and fill out their information and submit it. And that creates an in-basket request for us in Epic, where we can contact them. It's really nice because we have their basic information already. So what used to be a 15 to 20-minute phone screening is now like a 5-minute phone screen because we already have their address and information, which is great. So if they're interested, they can click that button online. And then we do the initial phone screen with them, make sure everything looks good. We're looking for big red flags at that point, something that's very obvious that they wouldn't be able to donate. Because we send our milk to NICU babies, we have very strict guidelines on the milk that we're allowed to take. So if we ever have to defer someone, trust me, it's not because we don't want to take their milk. We always want to take their milk, but it's because there's either not enough research to support the medication use in premature babies, or that the research out there says that it could potentially be harmful for premature babies. So that's why we have certain guidelines that we have. Like for instance, one of the big ones that we can't take is high blood pressure medication. So if you're on high blood pressure medication, we can't take your milk. So we're looking for big red flags. It's like, oh, this is obvious. We're not gonna be able to take this mom's milk at that initial screening. After the initial screening, there's some paperwork for her to fill out. Her OB and pediatrician are going to have to sign off on her donating. So OB is going to sign off that there's nothing in mom's health history that should keep her from donating. Pediatrician's going to sign off that baby's growing well if she is pumping for her own infant. So we want to make sure that we're never taking away milk from a baby that needs it. That's part of the mission of nonprofit milk banking, is making sure that that mother's own child gets her milk, and then also before she starts to share with other premature babies. So there's paperwork part, and then the last part is blood draw. So they can have their blood drawn at a WakeMed location if they're local, or a LabCorp location. So the one thing that I want to be really clear about, because this is kind of the hiccup right now, is trying to get people to go to LabCorp. So obviously most people don't want to go to a hospital right now unless they have to, and really all of us that work at hospitals don't want them coming to a hospital right now unless they have to. Right. So we used to draw blood through WakeMed just because it was convenient. We have our own lab infrastructure here to where we can draw blood for moms. It's actually less expensive, of course, for us to do it in-house, and as a nonprofit milk bank, that's important. But right now, in order to make everyone safe and keep unnecessary people outside of the milk bank or outside of the hospital, we've been doing everyone through LabCorp. So LabCorp has remote testing sites in the community. If you go online, you can find out your closest one. There's probably one right in your backyard unless you live somewhere very rural. And these remote testing sites are going to be the ones that do like your analysis for drug screening, or like if you ever started a new job and they needed you to do some sort of testing, then you probably went to a LabCorp. Or a lot of the biometric screening that people do for jobs to get discounts on their insurance, they do through LabCorp. So most people are familiar with one of these testing sites. Specific things that LabCorp is now doing for COVID-19 is that it used to be a common waiting area. They didn't do appointments. They would just have this common waiting area. You would come in, walk in, say what you need, and wait for who knows how long, especially if it was a busy time. So now what they're doing is they're doing wait where you're comfortable. So you can choose to wait in their waiting room, or you can wait in your car, and they will text you when they are ready for you to come in. So you only have to interact with the one employee at the LabCorp location, which is, you know, a trained phlebotomist that knows the proper protocols of what to do and how to interact with someone during this time. So that's one cool thing that they're doing. Also, something to note is that the COVID-19 testing that's happening is not happening at these remote testing sites. You do hear LabCorp mentioned a lot when they talk about testing, because big LabCorp facilities are the ones processing those samples, but they're not processing them or collecting them at the remote testing sites. So this has been a barrier for us to get moms to go to the lab, which of course we want people to stay home as much as possible. And if they don't feel comfortable, we never want them to go to the lab if they don't feel comfortable being out in the community. However, they are doing everything they can at LabCorp because they are an essential business, and they know that people still need to have this testing done to make people comfortable and, you know, prevent transmission of COVID-19. So I think those are two kind of important things. You can wait where you want and make an appointment, and you're not going to be amongst folks that are testing for COVID-19 right now.
Yes. Okay.
So after the blood draw, that's when we can have moms donate. So it used to be, we have 7 drop-off sites in the community. Some of them are located in OB clinics and things that may be doing reduced hours, or they might be kind of consolidating all their business to one office. So we're saying that the hospital locations are still open for drop-offs if people want to do that. It's virtually contactless. Mom can literally pull up and pop her trunk, and we will come in and unload the milk from her. So she doesn't have to have any real contact with us, and she doesn't have to come into the hospital space at all. So that's virtually contactless, but what is even less contacted is we can send a cooler to her home. Yeah. There are, and the coolers are all paid for by the milk bank. We have to have a certain amount of milk to make sure that the milk doesn't thaw on its way to us. So we do have minimums for the coolers themselves. We try to be as flexible as we can be, but of course we don't want to end up with thawed milk in the milk bank, because that's heartbreaking for us and heartbreaking for the mom that sent it. So we can ship coolers directly to the home. FedEx will come pick them up. You can schedule the delivery, leave it on your porch, and you don't have to interact with anybody, and the milk will make its way back to us. And we pay for all that. Or you can still do the drop off, kind of like a reverse drive-through, where you drive through and give us the food. So reverse drive-through. Yeah, we can do it either way at that point. And then once a mom's an active donor, she can be an active donor to what would be her baby's 2nd birthday.
It's really cool, because that, you know, that's something that I did. That's how we started this process. And we do have a couple of moms in our group who are grief moms. So is the process different for them if they decided that they wanted to pump and formally donate in comparison to just pump to reduce supply and make it go away?
Yeah, so we do have a lot of moms who have experienced a loss at that do donate. I would say it's heartbreaking, but it's a pretty significant portion of our donors. So that is something that we're familiar with, and that we always say, you know, it's kind of the worst part about what we do, but it's also the most rewarding part about what we do, because those relationships, as you and I know, are some of the ones that we remember the most. You know, to most moms, you're helping them clean out their freezer. To those moms, you're a very important part of that journey for them. So some of my absolute favorite moms are my lost moms. They have a very special place in my heart. But yeah, the thing about it is the milk is still going to go to premature baby staying in the NICU. So we can't make special accommodations for those moms as far as the screening questions themselves. We have to make sure the milk is just as safe as any other mom. Now, we do try to get rid of any minimums that would be associated with donating. So normally, even if you're dropping off, we have a minimum first donation of 100 ounces. We completely waive that for lost moms, because we are able to ask for that from other moms to cover the cost of her blood work. So we don't have any minimum for her. We try our best to get creative with shipping if we do need to ship her a cooler, and have all kinds of extra packaging and things that we put in there. So even if she is sending us a small amount, we can hopefully keep it frozen. And then when we do the retirement, so when we retire a donor when she's done donating, then we do a special gift for those moms. We normally send a certificate with total number of ounces, but we have something extra that we do for our lost moms. So process is similar. And of course, there wouldn't be a pediatrician form to fill out. And we fax the OB form and the pediatrician form on the donor's behalf every time now. So we try to take that step away from them too, having to go to a doctor's office, especially in light of what's going on now. Nobody wants to go to a doctor's office unless they have to. So no pediatrician form, and waiving minimums, and then special retirement gift for our lost moms.
That's awesome. And I've gotten that retirement gift and that little certificate, and it's a little like pride thing that I have. Like every now and again, I'll be like, look how much I donated. But like, that's kind of, greedy and selfish in my opinion. Give me 1 minute, please. Oh, the joys of children. So how does the processing work? Once you get the milk, what happens next?
So once we receive the milk, the cooler will come into the milk bank, whether it's dropped off or whether it's shipped to us. We bleach the entire exterior of the cooler because it's been out in the world, and then wipe it with a food safe wipe. Bring it into the lab at that point. So we have a milk processing lab here at Cary where it's very similar to other labs, except for we're processing large amounts of milk. So we have kind of a divided gowning area, sliding door where we all gown up to go in the lab. So in order to enter the lab, you have to have washed hands and be wearing a bonnet. So we always are wearing bonnets in there. And then if you're actually handling milk, open milk, you are scrubbed in like you scrub in for surgery. You're wearing an isolation gown and a mask. And we do that not to protect ourselves from the milk. If you're touching a bodily fluid, breast milk is certainly the one that you'd want to touch. It's the one that's least likely to transmit illness. It actually might do you some good. But we're trying to protect the milk from us. So we have bacteria all over us all the time, and we want to make sure that we're not contaminating the milk for our end user, because if we do microbiological testing at the end of it, and we would have to throw that milk away, and we don't want to do that. Because you heard all the work that we did to get the milk and all the work that the mom did to pump the milk. The last thing we want to do is have to throw it away. So once we enter the lab, bring the cooler into the lab, we actually sort the milk out. So typically, it depends on the mom. You can kind of tell someone's personality by how they pack their milk. Sometimes you have really anal retentive moms that label every single gallon size bag with what's in there, how much, what dates it was pumped, and all of that. But we sort the milk out. We sort the milk out by expiration date first, and then we're also going to reference that mom's chart. So we keep a chart on the mom with all of her exclusion dates. Say she needed to take an antibiotic or something that would keep her from being able to donate for a short period of time, or someone was ill in her household. So if that was the case, we keep record of those dates so that we can exclude them from the donation. We give them to the mom as well, so she can exclude them on her end, but sometimes they make it into the donation because someone missed a date. So it's our job to double check the dates, sort it by expiration date, meaning the pump date of the batch that we're looking at, and then put it into what we call deposits. A deposit is around 100 to 200 ounces of milk. And then once we get ready to process that milk, we send a sample of her milk to the lab to be cultured. Once that comes back negative and everything's good, we mix her milk with up to 4 other moms. So when you see a bottle of donor milk, you're not seeing one bottle of one mom's milk that we just poured in there. You're seeing anywhere from 4 to 6 moms in that one bottle. And we do that because the nutritional composition of your milk versus your milk versus your milk is all different. And we want to even that out as much as possible for the population that we're serving. So we will mix the milk together, and we do that by thawing the milk in bags. So then we do what's called cutting bags. So we actually take surgical scissors that have been sanitized. We do this all underneath a laminar flow hood. So if you've ever been to a lab and they work underneath a hood, we do that so that particulates from the air don't get into the milk. So anytime we're working with open milk, it's underneath a hood, fully scrubbed in, fully gowned in. There's probably pictures on our website of us kind of gowned in and using the hood. So we cut the bags open with scissors into large beakers. If you think about the beakers that you used in science class, they were probably like a 50 ml beaker. We use 3,000 ml beakers, which is 3 liters. So if you think of like a large bottle of soda, more than that.
I've seen these things, and like I didn't realize they were 3,000. Holy Toledo. Okay.
Yeah. So each one, 3,000 ml is roughly 100 ounces in one beaker. So yeah, so it's large volumes of milk that we're working with. But once we thaw the milk completely in the beaker, then we use Erlenmeyer flasks, which are the flasks that are kind of wide at the bottom and then have the little narrow top. You see them, like if you think of a science lab or like a mad scientist, that's the flask he's holding. So we use those to swirl the milk, and we do hand homogenization. I come from NC State, and so if you say homogenization to someone at NC State that works in the dairy, they're thinking of really big, large pieces of equipment that are mixing the milk. We do it all by hand because even though it seems like large volumes to anybody who knows breastfeeding and knows pumping, it's very small volumes compared to like a dairy. So we hand homogenize the milk to make sure all the donors are evenly mixed together and all the fat is homogenized throughout, so you don't have one bottle that's all fat and one bottle that's all lactose. And then you pour into the bottles that we use. We use sterile bottles that have a foil seal inside. So once you close the bottle, we actually have a heat induction sealer that seals the top of the bottle. Sorry, my alerts are still coming out. So we have an induction sealer that seals it. So when you open a bottle of donor milk, it's very similar to opening like a jar of peanut butter, where you peel back that foil seal to show that it's tamper evident. So if a nurse opens it, she can see, okay, this one's been used, and see what baby it's been used for. So tamper evident. And then at that point, once everything's sealed, we're not done yet. We can't just dispense a bottle of raw milk to someone else's baby. There's a lot of risk involved with that. Feeding milk to a baby, that's in the NICU and very vulnerable. We need to make sure that there's no potentially pathogenic bacteria in it. So we pasteurize the milk. We do what's called holder pasteurization. It's very different than dairy pasteurization. It's thought to be the best compromise between killing the bad bacteria that could be in milk and then also maintaining a lot of the bioactive proteins that are the reason why breast milk is so great. So we want to maintain those bioactive proteins but kill the bad stuff. So it's thought to be the most gentle pasteurization that can do both. Of course, some of those proteins get degraded, but a lot of them stay very, very much active. So we pasteurize the milk. It's 62.5 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes, and then we shock it in an ice bath, kind of like if you're blanching green beans. You want to shock it in the ice bath to make the cooking stop as quickly as possible. We only want to pasteurize it for the amount of time that we have to, not anything longer, because it will keep degrading those proteins and denaturing them. So once we do that, we send one sample of that individual batch to the lab, and it has to come back negative for bacterial growth. And once it does, that's when we're allowed to dispense it. So from the time that a mom calls us interested in donating to the time that we can actually dispense that milk, it really depends. We can check milk into the lab and then potentially be dispensing it the following week, because it does take 48 hours for anything to come back from the lab. But the screening process itself is kind of dependent on the mom, how quickly she gets that paperwork back to us. I've had moms that get it done in 2 days, and then I've had moms that get it done in 2 months, and moms that never get it done. So it just depends on how long it will take.
Awesome. I'm gonna unmute everybody that's here and let them ask you any questions. We've only got a couple more minutes left. So if you have
Sorry,
any,
I talked for a long time.
No, that is exactly why I asked you to do this. I know that the milk bank is needing milk. I mean, they were needing milk when I was donating. They're probably needing milk more now than ever. If anything, the one question I have for you is there anything other than us getting you milk that you guys can use in your bank right now? Like,
So
any protective gear? Because I know protective gear is, something that's in short supply. How can we best help you right now?
So we've gotten creative here. So we want to conserve PPE as much as we can for the people that are interacting with COVID-19 patients. Like, that is the most important thing. And we use a lot of PPE here normally. So there have been some things, and like I said, the PPE is used to protect the milk from us, not us from the milk. So the guidelines for usage of that PPE are different in our scenario. So some of those have been changed. We've adjusted some of the things that could be reusable and just cleaned to disposable every single time, so that we can save those disposable items for the people in our hospital that are interacting with those people. So that's kind of things that we've done here as far as needing actual equipment for that. I don't think we're at that place yet, but it's good to know that I have a resource when we get to that point. What we're doing now, I will say, is in our own hospital system, we have chosen, we used to dispense milk to well babies as well. We would dispense it to NICU babies, and then babies that were, just born that needed supplementation, we would offer donor milk, because if we can offer breast milk, absolutely, we want to do it. We have stopped that practice in our own hospital, not because we're out of milk right now, and not because we don't have a great supply right now. We do, but we don't know how long this is going to last. We don't know what this is going to look like in 2 months. No one does. So we want to make sure that whatever supply we do have, we're conserving for those preterm infants as long as possible. If we have 2 months worth of milk, if we're only serving the most vulnerable, then that 2 months might last a little bit longer. I'm not saying that's the case.
Yes.
I certainly hope it's not. But we want to preserve whatever we do have for as long as possible. And we're encouraging all of the hospitals that we do dispense to do the same, or to at least evaluate their practice and make sure that the most vulnerable infants are getting that milk first, because this is kind of when the rubber meets the road for all of those policies that say we're going to, put vulnerable babies at the top. So that's what we're doing here to conserve. And I would say, even if you don't have milk to donate, if when you tell one mom something, you've told 20. So just increasing awareness about the milk bank is great. Letting them know that, the LabCorp situation is as safe as we can possibly make it while still getting their blood. We can't take milk without blood results. That's just, that's how it is and how it will have to be to maintain safety for the babies that we serve. But encouraging people that have a little bit extra to donate is really the best thing that we can have right now. We are here every single day screening donors, still moving the process along, shipping out coolers. We are working on a reduced staff, because we want to try to keep distance from each other as much as possible. The new milk bank is very big and very beautiful, but when you start working within 6 feet of another, you realize how small a space is.
Yes.
So we're very much trying to do that as well. And, encouraging anybody with any illness to not be at work means that you're working with a reduced staff sometimes. So we're doing that here just like everywhere else. I know we're not unique in that regard, but certainly need milk more now than ever, just because I think people, we all kind of get caught up in what this all means to us, but I think a lot of folks forget that there are still babies in the NICU that need to be fed. A lot of people have asked me, are you closing for this? It's like, no, I've got babies to feed. So I have 44 NICUs in 8 different states, and that's a lot of babies to potentially not feed. So we're going to be here for the long haul. That is certainly our plan here. But in order to do that, we need help, and we certainly need more donors. So we've gotten a great response. I've been on a couple of news programs. I was on Spectrum News, and I'll be on ABC 11, kind of trying to get the word out there that we just still need donations. So we're doing everything we can to try to drum up donations, but if you guys are, well networked with other moms in your area, I would encourage you to do the same if you can, just so that we can serve those most vulnerable babies. A lot of people share milk privately, and as a lactation consultant, that warms my heart. But in times of crisis like this, it's really important that these babies get milk. This is life-saving for them. So I think if that can be communicated, that would be awesome.
All right, so I'm going to unmute Lori, Mary Hunter, and Donna here. And if they have any questions, they are more than welcome to, Mary Hunter, go ahead, unmute yourself. There you go. They're more than welcome to go ahead and ask any questions. The most Zoom time that I get to have is about 40 minutes. So we've got about 8 minutes left to ask any questions or anything like that.
Are you just sending milk to hospital NICUs, or how does the process work with requests?
So when we have a request, previously when we had requests for like outpatient milk, so a baby that's not admitted to the NICU, then we would refer them to another milk bank, because we are part of that network of 27 milk banks. So we would refer them to another milk bank that has a larger supply than us. There are bigger milk banks than us, 250,000 ounces. 250,000 ounces seems like a lot, but it's really not when you compare it to other milk banks. So we always defer outpatients as of right now, but what we're doing now is we are only dispensing to hospitals. There were a couple of birthing centers that we would dispense to as well, because we were dispensing to well babies too. We had enough milk to support that practice, just not the general population of outpatients. So we have stopped that practice for birthing centers and are only dispensing to hospitals. The thing that you can't really control is once it gets into the hospital, you don't know how that staff is using the milk. So they could continue to use it for well babies, but we have let all of our hospitals know that order from us that, hey, we can't tell you to change your practice. That's not our place, but we can tell you that, anything you can do to conserve this will mean that you're conserving it for the most vulnerable babies in your hospital and others. And we have had folks, just like everybody at the grocery store, hoarding toilet paper. People are hoarding milk right now. So I would encourage anybody that's working in a hospital to not hoard milk, because the same thing will happen. We have our supply that we can maintain for, normal ordering for our hospitals. When everybody orders twice as much, it's not like we have, this insane backstock of milk that we can just pull from to fill those orders. It will take some time to replenish, just like the toilet paper has.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Well, I don't have a question, but I do want to say thank you. It has been really good information. This is very informative. We are very appreciative that you're doing this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, Mary Hunter, for reaching out to us. We appreciate it.
And reach out to us if you have any other questions. If you have other questions, please don't hesitate. I mean, we're here. We're happy to answer.
And I'm actually recording this.
Oh, sweet.
So I can, with Montana's blessing, I can actually share this out onto different social media networks and just get that information out. Because, I do have some mom friends who aren't local to Wilson or to Cary, or, I believe you guys are in Greenville, or
yeah.
I saw Biden on your tags there. We just want to make sure that babies are getting fed and that babies are getting what they need. And if you are able to pump and donate, that's awesome. If you're not, that's okay too. But still, like Montana said, if you tell one mom, you end up telling 20, because we're home and all we have to do is talk. So
and you don't have to be local. So I think that's the biggest take home too, is that you don't have to be local. We're the only milk bank in North Carolina. So if they're in North Carolina and want to donate, we are their milk bank. So we're happy to facilitate that in any way we can, and anything we can do to help them and to make donation easier, we want to. The one thing I can't change, like I said, is the blood work. But anything else we can do to make it easier, that's what we're here for.
And Montana, can you tell us which hospitals in North Carolina are using donor milk in their NICUs?
So most hospitals are. I can't give you my client list because that would be a confidentiality thing. But a lot of most hospitals that have a NICU are going to be using donor milk in some form or fashion. Yeah. Okay. So it's I would say it's easier to count the exceptions to that than it is to count the ones that are using.
Okay. Well, that's good.
About half of our milk, I will say about half of our milk stays in North Carolina. So we very much try to serve North Carolina because we're part of a network and we don't want to, be in somebody else's area. Most of it stays in North Carolina, the milk that we dispense.
And
Donna, are y'all still using donor milk? Are y'all using donor milk, Donna, Vidant?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I thought.
Yes, we are.
And I can speak to the fact that, they really do function within a network. I ended up going, when I was pumping and donating, I ended up going to Pittsburgh around Thanksgiving to see my family. And at the time I was pumping an insane amount of milk. Mary Hunter can testify to that. And Montana set me up with the milk bank near my parents' house and literally transferred my file up there. So they had all of my information. And when I left, they weren't open. So my parents literally drove down to the milk bank and dropped off my milk. And they were like, what?
Yeah, that's really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, I mean,
we just need to get the word out more. More moms need to hear about donation. And I think some are a little fearful that it has to be so much or that they're not going to meet criteria. And so I think they're a little intimidated sometimes by the application process. So I think if we just get the word out more that, the need is definitely still there for moms not to be scared away by COVID-19 and testing and lab work and stuff like that. I think that's been a big concern lately, even for moms that are personally milk sharing, and I think sanitation and washing your hands and how you clean your pump parts and everything is just vitally important to remind moms about.
The CDC and the FDA have great guidance on their website that they're updating regularly too. There's a list from the EPA that certainly we don't know which chemicals kill COVID-19 in particular. We do know the ones that kill COVID-like viruses.
Right.
So there's a list on the EPA of cleaning materials that can be used in the home and in the hospital. And I think they just updated that list. We just got sent a new list to make sure that, we're cross-checking all of our chemicals here and all of ours are good. So that's good.
Okay, cool. And have storage guidelines changed any due to this or not?
So not as far as pumping for your own use. I will say storage guidelines for us, we, because of the processing in the milk bank and how long we have to keep the milk in the fridge, we ask that moms put their milk in the freezer within 24 hours of pumping. I think that's the big difference. And we ask that they also put it in their fridge within 30 minutes of pumping. So, so that it's not sitting out. And it's not because the milk isn't good. It's, you know, obviously as a lactation consultant, I would tell you it's good way longer than that.
Right.
But the reason is if it's sitting out, then it's exposed to all the things in your area. And there's a bacteria called Bacillus cereus, and Bacillus is actually not killed in pasteurization. So if the milk is positive when we check it in, it's actually going to be positive after we do everything I described in the lab. So we think to try to minimize Bacillus as much as possible, we find the moms that put it in the we find the moms that put it in the fridge sooner, it's exposed to less things in their environment. And so if you can put it in the fridge sooner and put it in the freezer sooner, that's always going to be best.
That's awesome. Montana, I'm so thankful for you taking this time and sitting down with us and, you know, just going over this and literally just helping us figure out, you know, what the milk bank does. I mean, you and I have built a relationship over the past almost 3 years now. And, you know, literally our first communication with each other was us giggling over the fact that I answered a question wrong, because that was crazy awkward. But
not wrong, just different than I thought you would have. Nothing's right or wrong. It's just
right.
different than I thought you would.
But it's that kind of thing, you know, it building a relationship with a bank like this is something that's really awesome and really cool, and you never really know where it's going to take you. I mean, if you would have told me 3 years ago that I would be sitting down having this conversation with you and that I would have gone to tour your facility and see how cool this all is, I would have told you that wouldn't have been happening. But
and this is the most rewarding part of my job. So I love building relationships with folks and being able to spread the word in different ways. So this is really exciting for me. And I'm so thankful that all of you guys were able to make this happen. And I'm happy to do, if there's specific questions, if you get a lot of questions afterwards and you want to sit down again, I'm happy to do that. And like I said, if you think of anything, or if anybody does, once visitation is lifted in the hospital, because we are going to get to the other side of this and we are going to have visitation again, I would love to give tours to anybody who does want to come see our space.
Because it's so cool. I think literally the entire time I was there, I had like one of those like little kid goober smiles. It was like the entire time. So Montana, thank you so much. Do you have any qualms about us sharing, like posting this in our nursing moms group? It's a closed page.
No, I would love it if you did. Yeah, I would love to get the word out. So please, by all means, post.
Thank you so much for all you're doing.
Thank
Montana,
you guys. We appreciate it.
We appreciate it so much.
And thank you, Vidant ladies, for all you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Nice to see y'all. Bye. Glad y'all are there.
Thank you.